Yeah, I, Sam Valentino, private toon detective, just did such a vlog, but now I have another one. So this past weekend, I saw The Day the Earth Blew Up, and I loved it. There are even some other moviegoers in the theater Daffy and I saw it in, and it was a pretty slow day for the cinema overall. But even with that, during its opening weekend, it only made $3 million domestically. Of course, this is kind of a semi-limited release that was barely promoted, especially since Ketchup Entertainment is actually the one distributing it, not Warner Brothers. It was originally supposed to air on Cartoon Network and stream on Max, but of course, Max has been against animated stuff, and Cartoon Network has been struggling, and it performed well at animation festivals. So the producers at Warner Brothers Animation needed to get it out to the American public in some way. I'm hoping me and Daffy's stuff about it on the social media and the like seems to help reach out. And speaking of the Max streaming service, they're also still going strong in removing animated content for kids and families that wasn't originally made for the service. This past Sunday, they removed all the remaining Looney Tunes shorts from the original 1930 to 2004 run. This means for the first time since early 2017, the classic Looney Tunes are not streaming anywhere, especially after Warner Bros. Discovery shut down the Boomerang streaming app last September. And it's a lot of bullplot. Many of the old Looney Tunes weren't exactly made for kids. They were produced for general movie-going audiences back in the olden days. And even so, back in the 1940s and 1950s, movie-going kids could also enjoy those Warner Brothers cartoons along with their parents. And when they began rerunning those shorts on television, they got even more popular with kids. Though there is hope. The Tubi fast streaming channel is going to add the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries and the Looney Tunes show to their lineup at the start of April. So it's possible in the future the classic Looney Tunes shorts may also stream there, the way the classic Tom and Jerry shorts currently are. And speaking of fast services, MeTV Toons is still working on developing one, and there's no doubt the Looney Tunes will be included on that. But to see the classic Looney Tunes now, you have to tune into MeTV's Tune In With Me, or their Saturday morning block, or MeTV Toons, or the mostly inaccessible Boomerang channel. So at least it's not as bad as the Looney Tunes downfall of the 2000s. After Looney Tunes Back in Action bombed miserably at the box office, Warner Brothers was convinced the Looney Tunes' old hat and theatrical hand-drawn animation was dead, so they pulled the plug on the new cartoons intended for theatrical release at the time, along with canceling Baby Looney Tunes and Duck Dodgers. And then in October 2004, Cartoon Network removed the classic Looney Tunes from the schedule, with the already even more inaccessible Boomerang following suit a little over a year later. And just 20 years ago came the announcement of the Lunatics reboot, since Warner Brothers Animation was mostly producing serious action-adventure cartoons at that time, and figured the Looney Tunes should get such a treatment to be relevant again. But even with that, there was still a huge initial outcry over those creepy-looking new Looney Tunes. So they were softened up a bit sometime later. And then the show ran for 2 seasons on Kids WB, but it ultimately proved to be an even more spectacular failure for making a mostly serious superhero cartoons out of the Looney Tunes. It got so bad, Cartoon Network and Boomerang outright refused to rerun it, even to this day. And it's not streaming anywhere in the USA either, and probably won't be, even though you can purchase it on digital on-demand platforms. But speaking of streaming, I wouldn't be surprised if many of those recently restored shorts that were initially released on Max are released on that upcoming first volume of the Looney Tunes Collector's Vault Blu-ray series from Warner Archive. It would be great to own them on disc, since as I've said, physical media is often superior to streaming and digital platforms. Not just if the content is removed from said platforms, but also if you don't have internet access or even electricity, but you have some means to play the discs, especially if it runs on batteries that can be used that way during a power failure or when you're on the go. And this also includes older and almost unorthodox physical mediums. And they also didn't just remove the classic Looney Tunes. Max also purged a bunch of the newer Scooby-Doo movies.
Oh, great. Now that movie laugh.
I feel ya, Scoob. But I was reminded not every Warner Bros. Discovery decision involves David Zaslav, and this purging is likely one of them. But his influence seems to be there. The Looney Tunes are suffering, Scooby-Doo is suffering, as are Tom and Jerry, as 2 of their movies also got removed, including the infamous Willy Wonka one that practically killed off the direct-to-video Tom and Jerry movie series. And from my sources, which I'm sharing a link to in the video description, many more shows are on the chopping block through this year, all related to Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, Hanna-Barbera-related legacy properties like the Flintstones and Scooby-Doo, the few Cartoon Network originals left, and the Adult Swim stuff. Many of the DC Comics shows are still good there, though, maybe because most of them feel more like live-action productions and are kind of mature, except for Teen Titans Go, of course. And you recall me mentioning at the very start of this year, Max purged all but the most recent season of Teen Titans Go, and that was definitely not a good sign, with Cartoon Network's most popular current show at the time getting mostly removed from Max. I don't see a removal date for any of the content Warner Bros. Animation produced for Max yet, including the Looney Tunes cartoons revival that premiered with the launch of the service in 2020, Jellystone, Harley Quinn, Bugs Bunny Builders, Tiny Toons University, and that Velma adult series. Before the Warner Bros. Discovery merger happened, WB announced a few other shows aimed at younger audiences, like Tom and Jerry Time and Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Pups. And of course, those were canceled. And need I once again mention the musical Looney Tunes film Bye Bye Bunny not getting very far in production before it's canceled, along with Coyote vs. Acme being shelved and unreleased as a tax write-off after being completed? In addition to hating animation, it wouldn't surprise me if David Zaslav just hates kids. This is understandable. Heck, even W.C. Fields is known for hating kids. Of course, since we still kind of have a bit of animation age ghetto, it's possible Zaslav largely sees cartoons as being kid stuff, which isn't true.
Jeez! First, a somewhat low amount at the box office, a higher likelihood that Coyote vs. Acme will never be released, and now this? Warner Bros. Discovery is going too far, so David Zaslav thinks I'm just kid stuff, does he? That's no reason for him to have Max yank my classics off their service. My original shorts were made for adults to enjoy, as well as their kids. Well, I'll show him. I'll tell everyone that's not the case. In addition to plugging my epic adventure film, woohoo!
I'm glad you agree, Daphne. Also, as I said, the Walt Disney Company is similarly suffering, but so far they haven't purged their classic cartoon shorts through Disney+. But they did purge some other shows. I still remember when the old Looney Tunes shorts were first added to Max, they ended up getting higher viewership than the old Disney shorts on Disney+. But of course, that was before Discovery Communications and David Zaslav came into the picture. And that Snow White movie, I'm still not impressed by it. They're damaging Walt Disney's legacy. Heck, the poster I saw for it at the cinema looks suspiciously AI generated. You may recall me saying I've got an eye for spotting AI art. It can be useful in cracking a case. Someone trying to throw people off of a fake evidence picture. But my foxy eyes know better, with the aid of my trusty magnifying glass. Fortunately, the day the Earth blew up didn't use anything like that. And we've also got that upcoming non-Disney Winnie the Pooh series that's animated using AI methods. When I looked up the mugs responsible, I wasn't surprised to see Andy Hayward behind it. The reason being he ran the American division of Deke Enterprises, and when the 80s transitioned to the 90s, they were infamous for taking shortcuts and saving money, along with their non-union practices. Many in the animation industry have joked that Deke stood for do it cheap. And I have the feeling if Deke were still around, having not been folded into cookie jar over 16 years ago, they'd resort to using AI to produce their shows. But Walt Disney would likely never want that. Sure, he would have likely approved of computer animation techniques, but definitely not that artificial intelligence plot. Same with if Bob Clampett and Tex Avery, Chuck Joseph, Chris Frayling, and Bob McKimson were still around to see. But as for Hanna-Barbera, I know they too are infamous for producing cartoons as cheaply and efficiently as possible, but I'm not entirely sure they would resort to AI. I know they did experiment with the possibility of producing their cartoons using Scanimate methods in the late 1970s, but it never happened, though they did end up being one of the first animation companies to use digital coloring and compositing, well before Disney started doing that with their animated features come to Disney Renaissance. And they didn't do this on all their shows and movies either. But the animation world is still in a huge rut, no thanks to Disney Plus and Warner Bros. Discovery's actions, and AI threatening numerous animators and such. Also, as I said, premium streaming services seem to be dying out, as if it were just a fad in the late 2010s and early 2020s, enjoying a boom with the COVID-19 pandemic. And then Bob Iger and David Zaslav are destroying their studio's legacies. I still hope Zaslav's suit ends up facing a big lawsuit. That would be so ironic. Then I wouldn't have to keep going back to my drink. At least that Zaslav mug wasn't involved with Copley's disappearance from Anthem, New England, as I initially suspected. But at least me and my partner, Inspector Ferdy, were able to solve that case in time. But David Zaslav may as well be my Professor Moriarty or my Judge Doom. I've also seen some people online threatening violence against Zaslav. Hey, he may haunt my nightmares, but I wouldn't go that far. I'd just rather see him behind bars than to actually be killed. But of course I'm just a little guy in all this. Though sometimes the little guy can make a difference, but the chance is higher of a bunch of them being together and spread the word. We will not let the Looney Tunes die! And as always, keep watching this channel to see more updates on how things turn out. Hopefully for the better sometime in the future.